Commander Park Woo-jin pressed his palm against the cold metal of the observation deck window. The stars that had been his companions for 3 years at Terra 7 Research Station now looked different. They were no longer peaceful points of light in the endless black. Today, they were witnesses to humanity's potential doom. The hyperspace rupture began as a small tear in reality itself. Woo-jin had seen ships emerge from hyperspace before, but never like this. The fabric of space twisted and groaned as if something massive was forcing its way through. The first ship appeared like a nightmare-given form. Its hull wasn't smooth, metal like human vessels instead. It looked alive, covered in ridges and patches that pulsed with sickly green light. Then came the second ship, and the third, soon. The entire star field was filled with them. "Dear God," whispered Chief Engineer Kang Tai-ho, who had joined Woo-jin at the window. "How many are there?" Woo-jin counted silently, his military training kicking in despite the overwhelming sight. "At least 5,000. Maybe more." His voice remained steady, but inside, his heart was racing. In his 15 years of service, he had never seen anything like this. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, each one slightly different from the others. Some were long and serpentine, twisting through space like cosmic snakes. Others were bulky and round, covered in what looked like armor plating made of bone. The largest ones at the center of the formation were cathedral-sized, their surfaces covered in glowing symbols that hurt to look at directly. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," Lieutenant Kim Da-yoon called out from her station. Her usually confident voice carried a tremor that made everyone in the command center turn toward her. She was fresh out of the academy, barely 22, and this was her first deep space assignment. Da-yoon's hands shook as she worked the controls. The communication day on Terra 7 was designed for talking to other human colonies and trading ships. Whatever was trying to contact them was using frequencies that shouldn't exist. "Put it through," Woo-jin ordered, walking to the center of the command deck. Round him, the skeleton crew of Terra 7 watched nervously. Most were scientists and researchers, not soldiers. They had come here to study the unique quantum phenomena of the star system, not to fight a war. The holographic display crackled to life with static and interference. Then, the image cleared, and everyone in the room took a step back. The creature on the screen was something from humanity's worst nightmares. Its head was elongated and covered in what looked like living metal. 6 eyes, each one a different color, stared out from its face with an intelligence that was clearly not human. When it spoke, its mouth opened to reveal rows of needle-sharp teeth. "Humans of Terra 7, it said, its voice coming through the translator as a wet, hissing sound. "I am War Leader Vexcon of the Vexstar Collective. You have polluted this sector with your presence for too long." The alien leaned forward, and Woo-jin could see scars covering its face and neck. This was a creature that had seen many battles, and survived them all. "Your species spreads across the galaxy like a disease," Vexcon continued. "You consume resources, destroy ecosystems, and corrupt everything you touch. This ends now." Woo-jin felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders behind him. He could hear someone crying softly. It was probably Dr. Chen Mi-young, the botanist who had been studying the rare crystal formations in the nearby asteroid field. She had a daughter back on Earth who was just starting school. "You have 24 hours to surrender," the alien commander declared. "Gather your people and prepare for transport to our processing ships. Your species' expansion ends here." The transmission cut out, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Woo-jin looked round at his people. They were scared, and they had every right to be. Terra 7 was a research station, not a military fortress. They had defensive shields and a few patrol ships. but nothing that could stand against a fleet of 5,000 alien warships, Sir Daryun whispered. What do we do? Before Wu Jin could answer, Dr. Li Haijin burst through the command center doors. Her lab coat was stained with coffee and her hair was disheveled, but her eyes were bright with excitement. She had been working in the quantum research lab when the aliens arrived. Commander, she said breathlessly, I've been monitoring their fleet composition with the deep space sensors. This is incredible. They're using synchronized neural networks to coordinate their attacks. Every ship is connected to every other ship through some kind of biological quantum link. Wu Jin turned to face her. What does that mean for us? It means they're powerful beyond anything we've ever encountered, Haijin replied. But it also means they have a weakness. If we can disrupt that neural network, even for a few minutes, their entire fleet would be thrown into chaos. The commander felt a spark of hope. What do you need? Time and access to the station's quantum ray, she said. The ray we've been using to study the stellar phenomena in this system. If I can modify it, we might be able to create a localized quantum disruption field. Wu Jin nodded slowly. It was a desperate plan, but it was the only chance they had. Outside the observation windows, the alien fleet was already beginning to move into attack formation. Time was running out. Do it, he said. The countdown clock on Terra 7's main display showed 18 hours and 37 minutes. Commander Park Wu Jin hadn't slept since the Vexstar arrived, and the exhaustion was starting to show in his bloodshot eyes. Coffee had stopped working hours ago, but adrenaline kept him moving. The alien fleet had repositioned itself into a perfect sphere around the research station. Each ship maintained exact distance from its neighbors, creating an impenetrable wall of metal and firepower. The coordination was flawless, almost robotic in its precision. No human fleet could achieve such perfect formation, sir. Their weapon systems are charging, reported Lieutenant Kim Daryun from her station. The young officer had dark circles under her eyes, but her voice remained steady. Energy readings are off the charts. Whatever they're planning to hit us with, it's going to be massive. Wu Jin nodded grimly. Through the observation windows, he could see the alien ships glowing brighter. Green energy coursed along their hulls like veins carrying poison through a body. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. In the station's low levels, Dr. Li Haijin worked like a woman possessed. The quantum research lab had been transformed into a war room. Equipment that was meant to study peaceful stellar phenomena was being jury-rigged into weapons of war. Cables snicked across the floor, connecting devices that were never meant to work together. The quantum resonance frequency is almost locked, announced technician Choi Min-ho, wiping sweat from his forehead. The young engineer had been working for 14 straight hours, his hands moving with practiced precision across the control panels. But there's a problem. The quantum ray needs to be much closer to their command ship to penetrate their neural network. Dr. Park Dong-hyun, the station's physicist, looked up from his calculations. How close are we talking? Within 500 meters, Min-ho replied. The quantum field degrades rapidly over distance. Any farther and it'll be like trying to stop a hurricane with a fan. The lab fell silent except for the humming of machinery. 500 meters meant getting close enough to touch the enemy flagship. It was suicide. There has to be another way, whispered Dr. Oh Soo-jin, the station's communications expert. She had been monitoring Vexstar transmissions, trying to understand their technology. Maybe we can boost the signal somehow. Haijin shook her head. I've run the calculations a dozen times. The quantum disruption field needs direct contact with their neural network to work. There's no way around it. The lab doors hissed open, and Security Chief Yoon Hana entered. Her tactical gear gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights, and like the scientists, she looked ready for war. Her body armor was scratched and worn from years of service, and her plasma rifle hung comfortably at her side. "The shuttles are prepped," she announced, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had seen real combat. "I've got 12 volunteers from the security team. We can get you within range of their command ship." Wujin, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped forward. "What are our chances of success?" Hana's expression didn't change. "For the mission, pretty good. For coming back alive." She paused. "It's a one-way trip, Commander. Once we're inside their formation, there's no way out." The weight of the decision settled on everyone in the room. They were talking about sending people to their deaths, but without this desperate gamble, everyone on Terra 7 would die anyway. "I'll go," said Minho suddenly. "I know the quantum ray better than anyone. If something goes wrong, I can fix it." "No," Hyjin replied firmly. "I designed the modifications. I should be the one to activate them." Hana held up her hand. "With respect, doctors. This is a military operation. My team will handle the infiltration. You just need to make sure that quantum disruptor works when we get there." Wujin moved to the holographic display table in the center of the lab. The three-dimensional image showed the Vexstar fleet in perfect detail. Their flagship was easy to identify. It was twice the size of any other ship, positioned at the exact center of the formation, like the heart of a massive organism. "The plan is insane," he said quietly, studying the tactical display. "A small strike team infiltrates the enemy flagship, while the station's quantum regenerates a localized disruption burst. It'll either save us all or doom the entire sector." The human strategy went against every principle of military doctrine. You didn't send 12 people against 5,000 warships. You didn't rely on untested experimental technology. You didn't bet everything on a single desperate gamble. But humans had never been known for following conventional wisdom. "The Vexstar have conquered 47 star systems," Wujin continued, his voice growing stronger. "They've swept across the galaxy like a plague, destroying everything in their path. But they've never faced humans before. They don't understand what we're willing to sacrifice for our survival." Through the lab's small porthole, the alien fleet was moving into final attack position. Energy readings spiked across all sensors as the Vexstar prepared to demonstrate their overwhelming superiority. The green glow from their weapons was getting brighter, casting eerie shadows across Terra 7's hull. "How long do we have?" asked Hana. 17 hours, Dayum reported over the intercom. "Maybe less if they decide to attack early." The security chief checked her equipment one final time. "Then we better get moving. My team needs time to prep for the mission," as she turned to leave. Wujin called out to her, "Chief Hana." She stopped and looked back. "Bring them home." She nodded once, then disappeared into the corridor. The sound of her boots echoed as she headed toward the shuttle bay, where 12 brave souls were preparing to fly into the heart of darkness itself. The countdown continued, each second bringing them closer to humanity's greatest test. The stealth shuttle Bison's pride drifted silently through the void, its matte black hull absorbing starlight like a hungry shadow. Pilot Sergeant Nanjiwu's hands moved across the controls with the precision of a master artist. Every muscle in his body was tense as he guided the small craft between the massive alien warships. "Systems check," whispered Security Chief Yoon. Hana into her headset. The strike team sat in perfect silence behind her, each soldier lost in their own thoughts. They all knew the odds. 12 humans against a ship that could house thousands of aliens. Stealth field holding at 97%, reported Corporal Sunho, the team's electronics specialist. His fingers danced across a tablet. "Monitoring the shuttle's invisibility systems. The Vexstar sensors are sweeping, but they're not seeing us. through the shuttle's small windows. The alien fleet surrounded them like metallic mountains. Each ship was unique, as if grown rather than built. Some had twisted spires that reached into space like claws. Others were covered in what looked like scales or skin. The sight made everyone's stomach turn. 2 minutes to target, Jiwoo announced. Through gritted teeth, sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool temperature inside the shuttle. Flying through the enemy formation was like threading a needle while blindfolded. One wrong move, one system failure, and they would be vaporized instantly. Hana checked her equipment one final time. The quantum disruptor felt heavy in her hands. Its alien technology humming with barely contained energy. Dr. Lee Haijin had worked for hours to create these weapons, combining human engineering with theories about Vexstar neural networks. Remember, she whispered to her team, "We're not here to fight the entire ship. We get in, plant the disruptors, and get out. Quick and clean." Private Kim Min-yoon nodded, her young face pale but determined. At 19, she was the youngest member of the team, but her marksmanship scores were the highest Hana had ever seen. "What if we encounter resistance? Then we handle it," replied Sergeant Park Taiwan, the team's heavy weapons specialist. His plasma cannon was modified with experimental ammunition designed to disrupt Vexstar biomechanical systems. These aliens have never faced human soldiers before. They don't know what we're capable of. The enemy command ship loomed ahead like a nightmare cathedral. Its hull was covered in ridges and valleys that pulsed with green light. Organic cloaking tendrils extended from its surface. Waving slowly in the vacuum of space, the ship was easily 2 kilometers long, its twisted architecture defying human understanding of spacecraft design. "That thing looks alive," whispered communications specialist Oh Soo-jin, staring at the massive vessel through her scope. She had been monitoring Vexstar communications for hours, trying to understand their command structure. The biosignatures are off the charts. It's like the ship itself is a living creature. Jiwoo adjusted their approach vector, bringing the shuttle closer to the command ship's lower hull. Sensor tendrils swept the area around them, searching for intruders the stealth technology held. But everyone could feel the alien sensors probing. The space around them, docking in 30 seconds, Jiwoo reported, his voice tight with concentration. "Once you're aboard, I'll maintain position for exactly 12 minutes. After that, I'll have to break away or risk detection. After that, you get clear." Hana finished firmly. "No heroics, if we're not back in 12 minutes. You return to Terra 7 and report our status." The pilot nodded, though his jaw was set with determination. Jiwoo had flown combat missions before, but never anything like this. The thought of leaving his teammates behind went against every instinct he had. The shuttle's magnetic clamps engaged with the alien hull with a soft, metallic thud. The sound echoed through the small cabin, and everyone held their breath. Had the Vexstar detected them? Seconds passed. No alarm sounded. No weapons fired. "We're clear," Jiwoo whispered. Beginning hull breach. The cutting torches ignited. There, blue flames slicing through the biomechanical armor of the command ship. The alien hull material sparked and hissed as it was cut away, releasing gases that looked disturbingly like blood. Within moments, a circular opening appeared in the ship's surface. "Atmosphere reads as breathable," reported Corporal Choi Min-ho, scanning the opening with his instruments. "Heavy on nitrogen, but our suits can handle it." One by one, the strike team dropped through the breach into the alien vessel. The interior was unlike anything they had ever seen. The corridors were round and organic, with walls that seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. Bioluminescent patches provided dim lighting, casting eerie shadows that moved and shifted. "Stay close," Hana ordered, her voice barely above a whisper. These passages could be monitored. The team moved in single file, their footsteps muffled by the spongy floor material. The air tasted metallic and strange, despite their breathing filters. Every surface looked wet, as if the ship was perpetually sweating. Specialist Park Dong-hyun's scanner beeped urgently. He held up his hand, signaling the team to stop. "Commander," he whispered, "I'm reading massive neural activity ahead. The bioelectrical patterns are incredible. We're close to their coordination center." Through the curved walls, they could hear something that sounded like singing, but it wasn't music made by voices. It was the sound of thousands of minds connected, in perfect harmony, sharing thoughts and dreams across the vastness of space. Hana felt her heart rate increase. They were about to enter the beating heart of the Vexstar war machine. The hunt was on. The blast doors to the Vexstar command center slid open with a wet, organic sound. Security Chief Yun Hana stepped through first, her weapon raised, and immediately stopped in her tracks. Behind her, the 11 remaining members of her strike team crowded into the doorway, their faces frozen in shock. The command center was beyond anything human minds could have imagined. The chamber was vast, stretching upward into darkness like the inside of a cathedral. But instead of stone and glass, everything was alive. Massive neural pathways snaked across the walls like giant veins, each one pulsing with streams of data that glowed with electric blue light. The pathways connected to thousands of smaller nodes, creating a web of communication that linked every ship in the Vexstar fleet. At the center of it all stood a structure that made everyone's stomach turn. It was a brain, not metaphorically, but literally a massive organic brain, easily 3 stories tall. Its surface was covered in ridges and valleys that twitched and moved with electrical activity. Tendrils of neural tissue extended from it in every direction, connecting to the ship's walls and ceiling. "My God," whispered communications specialist Oh Soo-jin, her voice filled with awe and terror. "It's beautiful and horrifying." The brain pulsed with a rhythm that matched heartbeat. With each pulse, waves of information flowed through the neural pathways. Hana could see data streams representing the positions of every ship, the status of every weapon, the thoughts of every crew member. This single organic computer was coordinating the entire Vexstar armada. "Spread out, Hana," ordered quietly. "Plant the disruptors at the major neural junctions. We've got maybe 2 minutes before they detect us." The team moved with practiced efficiency. Corporal Lee Soon-ho placed his quantum disruptor at a cluster of neural pathways near the chamber's entrance. The device was no bigger than a dinner plate, but Dr. Lee Hae-jin had packed it with enough quantum energy to disrupt the bioelectrical patterns of the entire ship. Private Kim Min-young scaled a pulsing wall of neural tissue, her magnetic boots finding purchase on the organic surface. The wall felt warm and alive beneath her feet, and she could feel it responding to her presence. She placed her disruptor at a major junction point, watching as the neural pathways round it began to twitch. "This is wrong," muttered Sergeant Park Taiwan as he positioned his device. "Ships shouldn't be alive. This whole thing is like one giant organism." He wasn't wrong. The Vexstar hadn't built their command ship. They had grown it. The brain at the center wasn't a computer. It was a living creature, possibly sentient, that had been modified to serve as the fleet's central nervous system. Specialist Park Dong-hyun worked at his scanner, monitoring the neural activity around them. "The bioelectrical patterns are incredible," he whispered. "This brain is processing information faster than any computer we've ever built. It's tracking millions of variables simultaneously." Suddenly, the neural pathways round them began to pulse more rapidly. The brain's surface started to glow brighter, and a sound like a scream echoed through the chamber. The alien crew had detected their presence. Alarms shrieked through the ship's living corridors. The sound wasn't mechanical like human alarms. It was organic, like the cries of wounded animals. The neural pathways on the walls began to flash red, and Hanar could hear the sound of running feet echoing through the organic passages. 60 seconds until Terra 7 fires the quantum pulse. Hanar announced into her communicator, "We need to be in position. The first wave of Vexstar defenders rounded the corner, and Hanar got her first close look at the enemy. They were tall and thin, with elongated limbs that moved with unnatural grace. Their skin was a mottled grey-green, and their faces were dominated by those 6 multicolored eyes she had seen in the transmission. But what struck her most was their weapons. The Vexstar carried plasma rifles that looked like they were part of their bodies. Organic cables connected the weapons to ports in their necks, creating a direct neural link between warrior and gun. When they fired, the weapons responded to their thoughts rather than their fingers. The narrow corridor erupted in a firefight that tested every limit of human reflexes and technology. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, scorching the organic walls and filling the chamber with the smell of burning flesh. The humans took cover behind neural clusters, using the ship's own biology as protection. Private Lee Soon-ho was the first to fall. A plasma bolt caught him in the chest as he tried to cover his teammates' retreat. He went down hard, his body armor smoking from the impact. But even as he fell, he managed to activate his quantum disruptor. "Soon-ho," shouted Kim Min-young, but Hanar grabbed her arm. "Keep moving," the security chief ordered. "His sacrifice can't be for nothing." More Vexstar warriors poured into the chamber, their weapons blazing. The humans were outnumbered 10 to 1. But they had something the aliens didn't expect: desperation, and the willingness to die for their cause. "Disruptors armed," shouted Park Dong-hyun, even as enemy fire scorched the air around him. 30 seconds, the massive neural brain began to convulse, its surface rippling with waves of electrical activity. It had sensed the quantum disruptors and was trying to protect itself. Biomechanical defenses activated throughout the chamber. Poisonous gas began to seep from the walls, and energy fields crackled to life round the neural pathways. "Masks on," Hanar ordered, pulling her breathing apparatus over her face. The toxic gas burned her eyes and made her throat raw. But the humans pressed on. The brain's convulsions grew stronger. Tendrils of neural tissue whipped through the air like angry snakes, trying to knock the human invaders off their feet. The chamber filled with the sound of electrical discharge and organic screams. "Hold position," Hanar commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Whatever happens, we hold." The countdown continued. 15 seconds. 10. 5. On Terra 7. Commander Park Woo-jin stood at the quantum ray controls, his finger hovering over the activation switch. Everything depended on the next few seconds. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. Commander Park Woo-jin stood at the quantum ray controls, his finger trembling over the activation switch. Through the observation deck windows, he could see the massive Vexstar fleet surrounding Terra 7 like a wall of death. The alien ships glowed with charging weapons, ready to unleash destruction on the small research station. "Sir," Lieutenant Kim Da-yoon called out, her voice tight with tension, "we're receiving final transmission from Security Chief Hanar. The disruptors are in position." Woo-jin closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of the brave souls who had volunteered for the suicide mission. 12 of Terra 7's finest had flown into the heart of the enemy fleet, knowing they would never return home. Their families would never know how they died, or that their sacrifice saved millions of human lives. "Quantum ray at full power," reported Dr. Lee Hyjin from her station. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced precision, fine-tuning the energy output. "We get one shot at this, Commander. If it doesn't work." "It has to work," Woo-jin replied firmly. He pressed the activation switch. The quantum pulse erupted from Terra 7 like an invisible shockwave, racing across space at the speed of light. The energy wave was colorless and silent. But its effects were devastating. It struck the Vextar command ship at the exact moment Hana's quantum disruptors activated inside the nullbrain. The result was beyond anything the humans had dared to hope for. The synchronized neural network that had made the aliens unstoppable suddenly became their greatest weakness. The quantum pulse didn't just disrupt the command ship's brain. It sent a feedback loop through the entire fleet's neural connections, creating a cascade failure that spread from ship to ship like a virus, across 5,000. Warships, navigation, systems failed simultaneously. Weapon targeting went offline. The perfect formation that had taken hours to achieve became a chaotic tangle of vessels spinning out of control. My God, whispered Chief Engineer Kang Taiho, staring at the sensor. Readings, it's working. The entire fleet is going dark. The first collision happened within seconds. A massive Vextar destroyer, its navigation systems completely dead, drifted into the path of a cruiser. The two ships struck each other with tremendous force, their biomechanical hulls cracking like eggshells, atmosphere vented into space in. Great clouds of frozen gas. More collisions followed. Ships that had maintained perfect spacing were now tumbling helplessly through the void. Some tried to fire their weapons, but without targeting systems, the plasma bolts sailed harmlessly into empty space. Others attempted to retreat, but their engines responded randomly to commands, sending them spinning in circles. Commander Wu Jin watched from Terra 7's observation deck as the mighty Vextar Armada tore itself apart. Ships that had conquered 47 star systems now drifted helplessly, their crews struggling to regain control of systems that no longer responded to their commands, sir, reported Lieutenant Kim Do-yoon, her voice filled with awe. We're receiving transmissions from the surviving vessels there. Their surrender requests. The young officer's hands shook as she translated the alien communications. After hours of death threats and ultimatums, the Vextar were now begging for mercy. Their proud fleet, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was broken and defeated. Put the main transmission through, Wu Jin ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the same alien commander who had threatened them 24 hours earlier. But War Leader Vexcon looked very different now. His 6 eyes were wide with shock and fear, and his scarred face showed something humans had never seen from the Vextar before: uncertainty. Humans of Terra 7, the alien said, his voice no longer carrying the arrogance of a conqueror. We request terms of surrender. Your species has demonstrated capabilities we did not anticipate. We wish to negotiate. Dr. Lee Haijin joined Wu Jin at the viewing port, her eyes bright with exhaustion and triumph. The Vextar neural network was their strength, but also their critical vulnerability. They never imagined anyone would be crazy enough to get close enough to exploit it through the chaos of the disabled fleet. Small human shuttles were launching from Terra 7. Search and rescue teams were looking for survivors from Hana's strike team. The quantum pulse had disabled the command ship along with the rest of the fleet, but some of the boarding team might still be alive. Rescue shuttle to Terra 7. Came a familiar voice over the communication system. We've got survivors. 8 of 12 made it out. A cheer went up in the command center. Security Chief Yunana was alive, along with 7 of her team. They had accomplished the impossible and lived to tell about it. Hours later, as the rescue shuttles returned from the command ship, Wu Jin stood in the docking bay to greet the heroes. Hana limped down the shuttle ramp, her arm a scorched hand, her face blackened with smoke, but her eyes were bright with victory. Mission accomplished, sir, she reported with a weak smile. The Vexstar won't be bothering anyone for a while, as the alien fleet retreated into hyperspace, broken and defeated. Wu Jin allowed himself a small smile. The Vexstar had learned something important today about humanity. Humans didn't just fight with superior technology or overwhelming numbers. They fought with something far more dangerous. They fought with the willingness to attempt the impossible when everything they loved was at stake. In the days that followed, word of the Battle of Terra 7 spread throughout human space. The story grew with each telling, becoming legend. A small research station had defeated the most powerful alien fleet in known space using nothing but courage, ingenuity, and the refusal to give up. Other alien species took notice. The Vexstar, who had seemed unstoppable, had been defeated by a handful of humans with experimental weapons and desperate courage. If the mighty Vexstar could be beaten, then perhaps humans were not the weak prey species they appeared to be. In the growing human colonial fleet, a new motto was born among the soldiers and explorers who carried humanity's banner to distant stars. When outnumbered, innovate. When outgunned, adapt. When facing extinction, remind the universe why humans survive. The legend of Terra 7 became a rallying cry for human expansion throughout the galaxy. Other alien races learned to think twice before threatening human colonies. The species that had once been considered primitive and weak had proven they could turn any advantage into a weapon. And in the depths of space, where darkness held sway over dying stars, the word spread among the alien races. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They were the species that turned their enemies' greatest strengths into devastating weaknesses. The age of human expansion had truly begun. The D.